All right, got about a minute late here, but we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First and foremost, if you've got a phone, if you'd be just so kind as to check it to see if it places the silent, that'd be great. And what we'll do is we'll start with a pledge to our flag, moment of prayer, and then we'll get right into the meeting. So just stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we're so grateful to have another beautiful day, Lord. We thank you for your continued blessings. Lord, if it be your will, we'd like to see some rain too, though. You tell us to ask you for things, and we humbly petition you, Lord, if it's your will, please let us see some rain in our county. Thank you, Lord, for the folks that traveled to visit tonight. We trust that we'll be able to conduct the business that we're here to do tonight, and that our efforts and our behavior will be pleasing to you. Guard us and guide us and see us safely home, Lord. In your name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
We have two sets of minutes. The August 6th, 2019, I believe Commissioner Allen was absent on that one. So, August 26th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if you have had a chance to look at them, I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
Make a motion to approve the August 26th minutes, both sets, 5:30 and 6 p.m.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any comment or discussion on those two?
Can I vote it all if it's doing or did I?
You want to hear that one?
I consider it.
Yeah.
I was here for September 6th.
No. He's saying there were two meetings on the August 26th.
Oh,
We
gotcha.
had a public hearing, and then it rolled into the regular BOC. So those are the two that's okay.
Clarification.
Yeah. So, and I should have stated that better too, that this is a motion and a second to approve August 26th public hearing and the August 6th regular business meeting. Any other comments or discussion? Commissioner Strickland?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Abstain.
Very good. And now for the minutes of the September 9th meeting. I'll entertain a motion on those minutes.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Are there any comments or questions about this? Seeing none, Commissioner Bettis.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Okay, we don't have any business involving guest groups or multiple visitors tonight, so we'll move into the chairman's report. Got two items that we'll hit on this one. The first item is a proclamation. And it is a proclamation basically commemorating or making October 6th to October 12th Mental Health Awareness Week. And what I'd like to do is read this, and if the board concurs, we'll take a vote on approving this proclamation. Okay. Whereas mental health is part of overall health, and whereas 1 in 5 adults experiences a mental health problem in any given year, and 1 in 17 adults live with mental illness such as major depression, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia. And whereas approximately 1/2 of chronic mental illness begins by the age of 14 and 3/4 by the age of 24. And whereas long delays, sometimes decades, often occur between the time symptoms first appear and when individuals get help. And whereas early identification and treatment can make a difference in successful management of mental illness and recovery, And whereas it is important to maintain mental health and learn the symptoms of mental illness in order to get help when it's needed. And whereas every citizen and community can make a difference in helping end the silence and stigma that for too long has surrounded mental illness and discouraged people from getting help. And whereas public education and civic activities can encourage mental health and improve the lives of individuals and families affected by mental illness. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Madison County, Georgia, do hereby proclaim October 6th through the October 12th, 2019 as Mental Health Awareness Week in Madison County to increase public understanding of the importance of mental health and to promote identification and treatment of mental illness. And with that, if the board so desires, we'll entertain a motion to approve this proclamation.
So moved, Chairman.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. And we'll go to a vote here. Commissioner Kirk.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right, very good. And kind of a public service announcement in conjunction with that week. Locally here in Madison County on October 6th, there'll be a candlelight vigil that's going to be held out here in the park behind us. And starts at 7 o'clock. And people just usually gather, they have candles, and if you're not tied up with anything, I encourage you to participate in that. All right. The other item by way of a chairman's report, and the reason I put it under a chairman's report is because there was really no action that needed to be taken necessarily by the board following a discussion at the meeting at the first of the month as it pertained to some concerns with the Board of Elections and some of the financial concerns. What I will do though is I'll share with you that I have shared with all the commissioners, and I shared with Ms. Dean too, at least a response to some of those concerns as they were presented. I did have a chance to go back and review the video of that meeting, so that I'd have a feel for what those concerns were, other than just having hearing it second or third hand. So first, I know there were a couple of comments, and I think everybody understood that the discussion or any action with respect to reducing the polling locations had been dispelled before that. So the county was not looking to reduce the number of polling locations. There was a concern or the topic of being able to store the new voting machines and the various associated components of that. And given the size, it was determined, and I believe it to be viable, or valid rather, that there will be a need to store that in a different location than where the current equipment is being stored. And the board is actually looking at it. The board was looking at it before that meeting, as a matter of fact. But I can assure you that they will be stored in a safe, a secure facility. It'll be climate controlled, and we will ensure that whatever requirements are made are required for that are going to be in place. So we're not going to either accept or receive the equipment from the state and then subsequently buy additional equipment if we're not going to find a place to keep it. So that we'll guarantee a place for that. I think the bulk of the discussion had to do with the line items as it pertained to poll workers. And I did hear, and I wanted to make a point of clarification. There was discussion about the budget had been cut, and actually the budget request is actually what was reduced. It wasn't the budget. The budget wasn't even approved when we met and did this. The request was reduced as a reflection of what had been spent in the last two presidential elections. Okay, those are at least two relatively known figures. We know what that was. I appreciate, and I understood that there could be additional elections. And quite honestly, just about every department has perhaps somewhere in their requirements, they have an item that is just unknown. They don't know what that number's gonna be. So, in a perfect world, in an ideal situation in our county, and we are making the attempt this year to make a provision for it, is your fund balance should be sufficient to cover those unforeseen things. That is by, definition. We want to keep that as a priority to build a fund balance. So when we look at the 50,000 versus the 80,000 that was requested, if the amount ends up being 85,000, then it's going to get covered. It would get covered by way of a budget amendment. And we do that somewhat regularly. It's not uncommon for us to do that. So the board has that at its discretion to cover that as that expense or as that need arises. I think towards the end of the discussion, it was cleared up that the board did set aside in a separate line item money for the actual voting equipment. So that was considered, and it was actually set aside. The amount was $70,000, and that was, again, our best information to try to cover the expense of those machines. So that is out there. It's already in the budget. It did not end up in the registrar's budget. As we're trying to, when we establish a budget by way of departments, whatever, if we've got capital outlay in any department, we're trying to identify that as a capital purchase or a capital expense. And it wasn't, and it's still not uncommon for us to identify those items and want to keep them at least in that area that we think it should be. It's easier when we get audited. These are the things that they go look at, and we're doing this trying to standardize, and we do it for the sheriff's office. We do it for a number of the other departments. So, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood those were the concerns as I understood them, and as there wasn't any, and I apologize for any information that the board might not have had. If I was the single point failure in that, shame on me. But I'm satisfied that every one of those items had been taken care of and had been discussed. And so if anybody has any concerns or questions about that, I'm always available. You can come talk to me anytime, and I'll be happy to show you in the budget where those items are. All right. All right. So at this point, we'll entertain statements and remarks from citizens on any agenda item. Our only item that is to be considered tonight is consider changing our county clerk, Rhonda Wooden's position. And it's the title, as we discussed, the title had been mentioned in the previous meeting as being changed to administrator, but I think collectively, and I'll let the board speak for this, but I believe they'll leave that at county clerk. So that's our one item for business tonight. So if anybody would like to speak on that, I'll open the floor. Okay. Seeing none, we'll actually get right into that item then. Okay, the commissioners and I have been in communication, and again, I think the concern as I watched the video from our last meeting was was, state of Georgia recognizes different forms of county government. And as such, you can have a county manager, you can have a chairperson, you can have a county administrator, you can have, and the Georgia Code kind of outlines, well, ACCG has done a good job in delineating some of the different roles and the different responsibilities of those positions. We have a full-time chair, which in many counties roughly resembles a county manager. And the thought that actually kind of spurred any discussion on this was many times day to day, there are needs administrative in nature. Sometimes they can rise to needing a board decision, but most of them are administrative things. And in the interest of facilitating those locally day to day, if the chair's not here, it was my hope that the county clerk could address some of those. So that's where the introduction of the administrator came in. And again, some of the concerns were that it might be viewed differently, that outside agencies might be wanting to approach the administrator. But then what the commissioners have at their disposal as far as job description, roles, responsibilities, I think it outlines those duties. And so really what we're looking to do is I want to make sure that the board understands my request from them is to basically I want to empower the county clerk in our case to be able to handle some of the decision-making as it pertains to administrative means here, and that should it go beyond the scope, if it's an outside agency, EPD for example, or something like that, then the clerk would defer to the chair on those. So, but this is an internal thing. So if the commissioners have any thoughts, I'm going to ask you to, if nothing else, just a vote of confidence to approve at least changing the role as you have it in front of you with that job description. And if we need to edit that or make changes, then absolutely we'll do that. But I'll open the floor for either a motion or the discussion.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the notations that you've given us, and I am in full support of the job description that was presented. I think it'll help make some of our activities here more efficient. So I'm all in support of that, and I make a motion to approve it and leave the title as clerk. The discussion's already been had, and I do support Ms. Rhonda's position, what she does for us. I'm happy to make that motion.
All right, well, I have a motion to approve the job description, the amended job description.
And I agree, and second.
And I have a second on that. Any other discussion or questions on that?
There's no new duties on here, all these are being done, you just kind of just bringing everything.
The largest change is that typically day to day, I am asked to make decisions regarding, administrative or perhaps, trying to, and it's not just making decisions, it's problem solving too, a lot of times, trying to consult and to figure out best ways to do things. Recently we had an issue with our health insurance, and the clerk actually took charge of that, and again, not making the call, but it's one of those examples of the times that I wish you could make that call, because it does not need to wait. If it's an administrative change that will help an employee with a potential rewording in our contract with our insurance provider, then I need that to happen quick. And if it's a matter of any additional monies or whatever, then that would come to me. But it's this. She's doing many of these things already, as you mentioned, but it gives her a little bit more autonomy in being able to make the call.
Looking at it.
Any other comments on that or questions? That's a good question. So I have a motion and a second to approve the amended job description, and with that, Commissioner Doster.
Yes.
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 All right. There is no new business tonight. Our next item on the agenda is a road update. If anybody's got anything on that, I will share with you on our next meeting. You'll receive some information from our road superintendent, from our public works director, with some their recommendations on potential LMIG projects. And we need to have an application submitted by the end of the year. But these are their recommendations, but by all means, we're looking for input. It's an excellent time, and I'm gonna reach out to our mayors in the cities and everything and ask them to voice any concern they may have about if it's a potential joint project or if it's something that needs to be looked at concurrently, then I'm gonna have them weigh in too. But again, next week, we'll start the discussion, and at the end of the month, we'll actually see if we can nail down that list to put on an application. Anybody have any other roads or issues that they need to?
Derek was, down a few guys over there to see, are they all back up there, you know?
No, he's still down a few. We've had one gentleman to have a heart attack this past week, and he's out. They are interviewing, looking at some other people, and there was a position that had been tied up with a long-term disability issue. And unfortunately, that position is free now. The gentleman did pass away, so there are several openings that we're looking to fill, and when they're back full strength, they'll be in an awful lot better shape. They've got this is the time of year where they tend to get real busy anyhow. So
I don't want to brag on them. I've had several people call, and it's nice to hear somebody bragging on the road crew. They've taken a systematic approach to these dirt roads
right.
all over the county where they put in the ditches and, getting them in really good shape. Kudos to us, to Derek.
They have worked for those of you who are
It's
farming.
raining, yeah.
They
Get a lot done this time.
we've had repeated concerns with the roads over in Culver, the
All the bones.
Arnold Bottom. You have HB Chandler, Zettermay. You have a number of those, and it's unfortunate that the road is lower than the surrounding property. And so they've been about the business of actually bringing in load after load after load of dirt and building those roads up, and now actually have a chance to have a ditch that's not the road. So it's pretty good improvement stuff. So, but it had to come in a period, and again, folks, if you don't know anything else, I believe there's a plan that's greater than us, and I believe very strongly that while it might have been a little bit abysmal for those of us who don't really like the heat, the dry weather has been a blessing working on these roads. So for everything, there's a silver lining in it. You have to look for it. So, any other comments on those? Any urgent matter? All right. Statements and remarks from citizens. We'll entertain statements on any item. Doesn't have to be about our discussion tonight, but we'll open the floor and we'll ask if anybody's got a comment. We're going to keep it within our 3 minutes.
I'm going to tell you that I know that I will be longer than 3 minutes, so whenever you get ready that you feel that you need to cut me off, then that's fine.
Okay, I'll do that.
But I feel that I need to explain the September 9th meeting. As most of you got copies of that email as well as I did. When you got the emails, I got a copy of it that the chairman sent out last Tuesday. Needless to say, I was trying to take a few days off, but when I got that email, it just kind of hit me the wrong way. And so I thought, well, I'll just address it tonight. So I have a few points that I want to bring out. But first, I want to ask you, we're talking about the storage area for the equipment. So you've already decided, y'all as a board have decided where that's going to be.
Now, this is your opportunity, Tracy, you know, this is your opportunity to speak, so if we enter, and I don't wanna take up your
Okay,
time.
that's fine, that's
I'll
fine.
let them speak if they want to, I'm not,
That's no problem,
Okay.
that's no problem. First of all, I'm a little confused about why I wasn't listed on the agenda. When I found out about the agenda for tonight, it was told to me, by Ms. Wooten that she would forward that email on to you, the chairman, and that you had decided that it would, there's no need to put it on as an agenda item, that you would talk about that in your report. That's fine, I have no problem with that, that's that needs to be done. But the minutes that you approved prior, well, on the September 9th, those minutes you just approved, stated in there that, you know, this was gonna be discussed again. And if that's, and I can read it to you if you would like, it's item number 4, if I'm not mistaken. That said that we would, you know, it would be looked at, that was on one of the handouts. I'll have it here, and I've got a copy, if you'll go back and look in your minutes, right here it is. Board of Elections Chair Tracy Dean addressed the board regarding the upcoming election requirements of new voting machines, storage needs, and training for staff, poll workers, voters. Revisions for the 2020 requirements will be considered at the September 30th, 29th meeting. The only time we've heard about it is in your report, which that's fine there. That's how we want to do it, that'll be fine. When I called, when I set this down to be on the agenda for that September 9th, sent the email to Rhonda, she sent it back to me and said that you would look at it on the wording. I questioned that, and then you called. And I explained what I was going to be talking about. I explained that I wanted to discuss the 2020 budget and the storage area for the new equipment. And that the budget had nothing to do with salaries, and that was mainly gonna talk about the poll worker line item. That, you know, I was concerned about being cut. That's what I remember as far as my phone conversation. I'm just gonna talk briefly about that email. The main point that I want to speak of is the very last statement, because I could go on forever for all this, but the very last statement in the email, you had made the statement that if they had any questions, if the commissioners had any questions, that they were to consult the county attorney on the questions regarding discrimination or disenfranchising voters. I agree with that, I do agree. What I don't agree with is your statement that says, I don't think standing in line to vote reaches that threshold, nor does the number of polling locations necessarily. I'm not talking about consolidation of precincts. But if you have an elderly person or any person that has to stand in line for a long period of time, and they get tired and they're not able to stand there, and they leave, what have you done? You have disenfranchised that voter. That's my opinion. That's what we think of. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's fair to voters in this county. So, you know, that's my take on that statement.
we're at 4 minutes, but I'll
Okay.
give you another minute here.
That's fine. I'll just go ahead and read my last statement here. I'm not here to argue with any of you or question anything you do. You have your job. I have mine, and mine is to run elections in the county in a fair manner that's, you know, the voters get out there, and by law, what I'm supposed to do. When it comes to that equipment, I don't want it to go anywhere else besides my office. And if that means that I have to stack it to the ceiling, then so be it. That's where it needs to be. SCB rules and the election code states it needs to be the supervision of the election superintendents, which is myself and our 2 board members. So you keep that in the back of your mind. We make that decision. As far as we're in control, and we have to be responsible for that. And I honestly feel like I have been in a battle with you all. And I don't have time to deal with it. I've got an election that's gonna happen in 2 weeks. Can't even, the emails that go in and out, the notices that I put in the paper, if you would let me do my job, I can do it. I've been doing it for a number of years. Just let me do it. And I'm very hurt that the encouragement that I saw And the support that I saw on September the 9th, it is not here tonight. You can sleep with it, so can I. And my job is there, again, is to help all the voters in the county, and that's what I continue to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Dave Ramsey, and I'm in District 1. I attended the last meeting, and I understood at that time that you would be voting on the request from the Board of Elections and Registration at this meeting. So that's why I intended to come tonight. May have been my mistake, but that's what I understood at the time. But I would like to just respond to what Ms. Dean just said. And that is that she made a request. It was $30,000 more than you were willing to fund at the time. But it puts her in a bad spot, I think, not to fund what her request was when there is no, I haven't heard anything tonight. There's no reason why that request couldn't have been fulfilled to its desired amount. I heard a lot of discussion at the last meeting where it appeared to me there was unanimity about the need for the request to be granted. It appeared to me to be unanimity among the people who were here. So I just wonder what happened, why there's a change now, because I was expecting to come tonight, and y'all were saying we talked about it, you know, we discussed it, and we believe that the request should be granted. I listened to Ms. Dean's proposal some time back. It seemed very reasonable to me, especially since she has to employ more people for this election coming up. And I think this is going to be a very important election coming up in 2020. She's got to prepare for that. It's going to require a lot of training, additional training with people. It's going to require training on these new machines. And that's why I thought the request was reasonable. As far as the storage area, I agree. In the past, I've had to serve on a similar type of board. You have to have your equipment nearby. If somebody somewhere wants it right away, you've got to know exactly where it is, and you've got to know how you're going to get it to that location. So I think you should consider her storage area being in the immediate vicinity of her whereabouts. I didn't know about the standing in line comment, but I couldn't stand in line for an hour without falling backwards. And I know a lot of my friends couldn't. I think you need to prepare for that. This is going to be a very important election. A lot of people are going to be there. They have a choice. They can vote by absentee ballot, or they can vote at the precinct. But that's their choice, and you have to prepare for whatever choice they may decide to make. So I would think that you would want to do everything possible not to be called on the carpet later for voter suppression. And I mentioned this last time. I hate to use that term, but I know it's going to be used. And I don't want us to be in the same vicinity of that term. So please do all you can. I hope you'll change your mind and vote for her request. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you. Anybody else?
Diane Satterfield, Color, Georgia. I too thought that it was gonna be on the agenda tonight, which I think if it was on the agenda, she would have more than 3 minutes to talk, I would think. But at any rate, this is gonna be a very important election. And you had mentioned that you look back at what was spent in the last presidential elections and what was spent last year. Do you know what those numbers are, of what was spent, not what was budgeted?
for the line item poll workers, for the poll workers, it
Well,
was,
for the,
46,000.
it's 46 from 2016.
that was what was spent in 16.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so we would expect it would go up because everything else has, right?
Well, the 2012, do you remember that number by chance? It was also less than 50,000. So, again, go ahead, it's your time.
I'm just trying to figure out what the numbers are, and I know that you can always go back and do a budget amendment, but it's usually looked on better if you, this is my budget to start with, right?
Ms. Satterfield, if we voted tonight to increase it 30,000, it would require a budget amendment tonight to do that. The budget's been approved,
Okay,
so it would still require a budget amendment at any point, is all I'm saying.
yeah.
Right.
It just seems like it's better from the beginning to know what you're gonna spend rather than later.
If you know what you're gonna spend, I would agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at what's the budget is in the past and what it ends up being. So, at any rate, I just think we need to do everything that we can to make sure that we have everything covered. And like many of the others have said and will say, we just wanna make sure that it's all above board and everything's fair so that we don't have any questions coming up later that we could have prepared for it.
Very nice. Anyone else?
It's Chip Chandler from Carlton. This is gonna sound like a review, so just, it's not. But I tell you, years ago, in order to speak in public to the commission, you had to speak on an agenda item. You didn't have an open period. The trouble is, the legal organ, it was the Comer News at the time, sorry, came out, I think, on a Thursday, but the agenda was set even on Tuesday or Wednesday. So the only way you could find out what was on the agenda before the time was to go down to the commissioner's office in the old courthouse and find out. So consequently, a lot of people didn't get to speak. But I am real concerned about people being able to speak. I see the little light up there, but I have the honor, or some people say that I have the honor of that 3-minute rule being applied to me, and that's why it came into existence. And I don't think that's true, but I'll accept it. But I appreciate the fact that, for Mr. Chairman, that you let the department head speak longer than the 3 minutes. I think she hit 5 or 6 maybe. But y'all as a board can vote at any time to abrogate your own rules, the 3-minute rules. And the main thing here is communication. It's not 3 minutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else? Assuming that's all, if any of the commissioners would like to respond to some of the questions that were asked, feel free. I mean, if you'd like to address any of that.
I just have a couple of statements. This is my first term. I was elected, and part of what I was looking at was trying to make sure, and I've had a lot of people comment, some of you comment, matter of fact, about making sure that we manage our money well, okay? Now, with that being said, that's what I'm trying to do. And I think some on the board are trying to do that. Also, looking at when we budgeted this, when we actually came to the budget, there were a lot of unknowns. I think I expressed that at our last meeting. There were a lot of unknowns. I know you came out with a budget and said, this is what we need, it's sort of unknown. Also, at that same time, when we budgeted this, we knew that could change. And that, I think as John stated earlier, that if it costs $85,000 or $90,000, you know, we have those in a contingency that we can use. So, I'm a little bit taken aback about the fact that so many people are not, at the last meeting, we said we would do whatever it took to make this happen. The issue with number of precincts, that's 12 right now, and it stays that. There's no discussion of that, so it sounds like we're arguing about something that may or may not could happen in the future. Addressing the issue with our attorney to find out what constitutes that and what doesn't, helps me to understand what things we can do. Because, again, I don't want to disenfranchise anybody. I don't want it to be said about me. But then again, too, you gotta look at, from a financial standpoint, do we just keep adding precincts, or what do we do? You're saying some of them are very crowded, right? So, we gotta look at this thing at a broader picture. Right now, we don't have to, because it's 12, and that's it, because we got these elections coming up, and that's where we're going. So the money's there. If we need to pull it, we can better manage that as we know exactly what the costs are. As far as the storage goes, that's one of those things, we didn't even really know what the equipment was. I talked to you several times, Tracy, I think, over there in your office. You didn't know what the equipment was gonna be. You had an idea, but you didn't know.
But we know now.
We know now. So, we know now too. And so we can address that. And I agree, I don't want any voter disenfranchised. But we have to work off of data and off of what we have here. And we've not precluded anything to happen. We've not said that the storage is not gonna be there in your facility. We have not said any of that. We haven't got the first piece of equipment yet. So this is some of those things that we need to discuss. Well, have you got, you have
We've got our
got.
demos Friday, and as
Okay.
soon as this election's over, they'll be sending out the other. And
Okay.
if you all know more than we do, please let us know.
Oh, well,
because
I
that's what
don't
we
know
would like to
anything,
see.
so this is
Right.
it. I don't know this either,
Right.
okay? So, we can work on that storage system and figure out where it's gonna be and what makes sense, okay? Now, if it's gotta be in direct control, then, you know, we gotta look at that, all right? Because we gotta manage this, because all of a sudden, if we just say, and I've seen this happen, because I've worked in industry for years, you just go out there and budget an amount, it gets gone, goes somewhere. And now I'm not accusing anybody of just taking money and using it and just, you know, saying, well, I got this extra money, so I can just go do this, or I can do that. But I know it happens. And so that's sort of where I'm coming from. Now, I've been just as plain as I can be with where I'm at. But I do take it sort of aback, from my standpoint, that we come here and that we talk about this like that all of a sudden we're trying to disenfranchise voters, and that we're trying, that we've cut the budget, which in reality we have not done that. At least that's not my intention.
I want to say something too. This is kind of like Mr. Chip said, this is not a rebuke on any one person, because I don't even know who brought it up first. But voter suppression, that's a serious thing to be throwing out there. I don't think there's no, I'm not talking to you, I know somebody else has said it tonight. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody. But that's fear mongering when it comes down to it, because when you've got absentee voting, early voting in a precinct in every nook and cranny of the county, there's no way that you could say that somebody couldn't vote or couldn't get to a poll, because we're not talking about taking any of them away, especially till after the 2020 election, and then it may be looked at. But you know, there's enough division in this country. We don't need it in the county. I just hate for that to be brought up, because it questions the integrity of everybody on this board, and you know that never came to mind. And that's not something that could even cross our mind. So I just hate to hear that thrown around. That's serious accusations, and I just appreciate it not even come up, since there's nothing you can back it up with. But anyway, that's just on my part.
And if I may, I agree with you, that should never be brought up, but it was in the email, and I felt that I needed to address that. And that's the reason that was coming out.
Okay, so I wrote the email, let me tell you what it says. because you left out the last line, which I thought was the best line in the whole email.
Yeah, well, you did thank us.
But you didn't acknowledge that, though. And I stated that thanks to
There's been many
Tracy,
times that we don't get acknowledged, so.
well, again, we're not gonna go back and
I
forth.
agree, I agree.
So it says, thanks to Tracy and her staff, there are so many opportunities and different means for citizens to vote in Madison County. That's a fact. Those that Commissioner Strickland just mentioned. What I will tell you is my line about I don't think standing in line to vote reaches the threshold, that was the member that spoke that evening at the very beginning of public comment. I used his line. I didn't make that one up. And it does not constitute discrimination. If you're in Fulton County, unless you're willing to wait, you're not gonna vote. But we have, proportionally, we've expanded the number of polling locations, so I feel like that was addressed. And then, storage. I appreciate the desire to have it close, and I understand what code may say about it. But if you're not there 24 hours, you could acknowledge the fact that you're not close to it. So I don't know how you work around that one. I don't think we're geared up to run 24-hour ops here. But that's what I'm saying, is that's, if you want to be literal about it, I'm just trying to put it out there, though, that you have to look at every means available to you. And if the mountain doesn't come to Mohammed may have to go to the mountain. That just means where you're located may not be an optimum place to be located. Maybe there's some place that we do have that space. Again, hasn't been, you asked me, or you asked if that decision had been made, and the answer is no, it hasn't. So I'm just being fair with you, so.
And I do appreciate the fairness. And it's going back as far as the opportunities to different, but that's statewide, that they offer those opportunities to vote.
Right.
Statewide, and so that's what we do,
But I just feel like, and I'm not being callous when I say this, but I feel like we've gotten pretty loose in our interpretation of what constitutes, I hate the word disenfranchising. I wish I even knew what it really meant. I understand discrimination, and I understand that. And, I appreciate today more than ever not having to stand in line an hour. I couldn't do it either. So, but and I'll say this, and this is, I feel like I'm picking at a scab a little bit, but I gotta say it. You made several times during the meeting at the beginning of the month that you were surprised that the amount had been changed. Nobody had shared that with you. When you called and when you and I spoke on the phone, I wish you'd have just asked me right then. If that was on your mind, I would have shared with you that day, that minute, the rationale behind that changing. But again, I didn't know that's where you were going with that, so I couldn't answer it. So, all right.
Well, all I had asked is that y'all just, if you ever had a question, just come to me and ask me. If I don't know the answer, then, I'll find it. But how am I gonna know what you're thinking, and you know what I'm thinking, if we don't talk and communicate with each other? And I feel we're not communicating, and that's unfortunate.
All right.
Well, I will bring up something too, Teresa. This is something I've been thinking about, and Tracy.
I know.
Sister,
She's
sorry.
Yeah.
I agree with the open communication, but, we kinda got slapped here last year when we got an email about how we're not gonna be reminded anymore. After, I don't even remember what it was about, but it was something negative. Had something that happened with the commissioners, and then next thing we know, we got an email that says, nanny boo-boo, we're not gonna remind you anymore to turn your stuff in. But, people get busy, and that's a pretty serious offense when you don't get it turned in, and it was very nice to have a reminder. But anyway, it's a pretty steep fine too.
And if I may address that, which I may not.
I would like to know about it, because I've been meaning to ask you.
Okay. When I came before you at the beginning of the year to talk about the salaries that were given out, I was concerned with that. We go back and we look at we are a filing agent for ethics. That means by law, all I have to do, my office does, is take what you bring to us, send it into the ethics in Atlanta. And we report late filers, and that is it. I don't have to do anything else. But as a courtesy in the past, we sent out those emails to you.
And it was nice, and I appreciate it.
But I tell you what really got next to me. Is when I hear, it gets back to me that one of the local, that's a conversation of one of the local, breakfast nooks, that email that I sent out was gonna make heads spin.
Say it again.
It was gonna make heads spin. Heads roll, excuse me, heads roll. Because I sent that email out. By law, there again, and Mr. Pruitt may want to back me up, or he may not, I don't know. But by law, all that we have to do, we are a filing agency, and we take what you bring to us, and we file it, and we notify the ethics when there is a late
I'm
filing.
just saying, if you want a nice, clean, friendly, working communications back and forth, you know,
Well,
that wasn't very nice.
As one commissioner, previous commissioner told me when I was trying to get a system for the, office, and I don't mean any disrespect to any of you. He didn't vote on that system because this is what he told me. He says, if we are big enough to run for public office and get elected, then we should be responsible enough to take care of our
I
own,
understand that.
our own.
I bet it was spiteful is all I'm saying.
Well, I did not mean it to be spiteful, but I just
And
mean
no
it to
other
go
way
out
it could have
there.
been taken, I'm just saying.
I'm just, getting out there, that that's what, that was just a
There's
part
no
of
other
the
way it
job.
could have been taken. It's not innocent. It was not innocent. And it was, the time is very questionable. And this is a whole new board here. There's nobody in the past that's ever
I agree,
jumped
Chair.
on it.
I agree.
Chairman.
I do.
Point of order. Can we,
Yeah, I
I
don't,
don't wanna go back and forth.
Well, that's just
Well, I
something
don't
that's been
either,
on
but
my
this should
mind.
have been addressed at the beginning of the year when that come out. It should not have gotten back to me. There's somebody that went and ate breakfast in a restaurant that heads were gonna roll. That to me
You
sounds like
gotta
my
remember
meeting.
that stuff comes back, not always the way it was sent out.
Well, that is exactly true. That's exactly
So
true.
at that point, you should have gone to whoever said that.
Well,
In fact, and see to see if it was true. That's all I'm
because
saying.
their minds had already been made up, so that doesn't matter. But yeah, I was a little, and if you wanna say that, that it was not innocent or whatever, how would you feel if you've been working for the county for 20-something years and all these other people come in and get a raise and you don't get one, and you've had certification after certification, and you're making no more?
But that's what it was about.
well,
No, that's not necessarily what it's about.
It was.
But anyway, thank you.
well, yeah. We'll have an opportunity, I'm sure, to talk about that one more, so.
I wanna say something, just real quick. The last time I checked, we're all on the same team. We gotta work together. This is a very, very serious, position that their department's in, and we have to do things right. We have to be communicative. We've gotta be open, we have to be transparent. And I don't wanna talk anymore about the past. We have got to think about the present and move forward, and let's work together.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Folks, all I need is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
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 All right, we're adjourned.